I hope you guys can hear me, and you all have the chat option as well. So we have our guest speaker today for this session, Mrs. Sarani Gunatilaka as well. Hi, we're very pleased to have you on board as well. So I'm Zainab Rafiq, and on behalf of the Law Student Association of Sri Lanka 2020, through the Career Development Committee of 2020, we warmly welcome you all to this platform today for this session on Grow, which is defined as Get Ready for Opportunities at Work. We're very pleased to have this session, which is a webinar series ranging from CV writings, professional development sessions, and panel discussions, and etc. So we hope the participants here today will be joining in with our future webinar series because this will definitely help them in the future long run in the professional field as well. I'm very pleased and it's my great honor to welcome our speaker for today, Mrs. Sarani Gunatilaka, who is a visiting lecturer at Apit Law School, and she's a commercial mediator and negotiator and has an attorney at law. Despite her busy schedule, she's here today with us for a session on CV writing and how to face an interview. I shall hand it over to her so that she can start off with this session. Thank you. I think you need to unmute your,
yeah. So sorry. Okay, thank you very much, Zainab. I hope everyone can hear me properly. And I'm so sorry about the background. Unfortunate thing happened as usual. An uninformed, without notice power cut. So I had to get everything and sort of adjust myself inside a car. That's why this background. I hope you don't mind, but we can move forward with the discussion without any change to that. So first of all, my thanks to the Law Students Association for taking the initiative to conduct this webinar series as an attorney at law and as a person who has been a law student for quite a long time. I know the value of this and I hope all the participants today will benefit from this session. So to start with, I plan to discuss with you all how to sort of design your CV and then how to face an interview. So obviously the process will start from the point where you decide to apply for a job opportunity. As law students, if all of you are law students, I just assume so, but even otherwise, when you come across an advertisement or when you hear about an opportunity for you to apply for employment, you will pick a particular employment based on certain characteristics of that particular employment. So it's important for us to, at the very beginning, keep in mind that these are the very characteristics or the very points that we need to keep in mind when designing your CV. I know that all of you at school might have learned CV writing, how to design your CV and everything, but then once again, when you try to sort of apply for a particular employment, you all will realize that there is no such thing called a standard CV that can be used for all types of employment. This is basically because different employments or different employers look for different skills. So therefore, your CV has to always be customized according to that particular job opportunity. Now, for example, if you're a law student, most of the times you will get these advertisements calling for researchers. So if you're applying for the post of a researcher, then the qualifications that you would want to highlight and the experience that you want to highlight will differ from any other job opportunity that you want to apply for. Let's say you want to apply for the post of a program officer, or a project officer, a project manager. Then the type of skills that you want to highlight will be different. So the main thing that matter the most is that first you need to properly go through that particular advertisement calling for applications. That's the most important thing. That's the first step. You have to try as much as possible to understand what the employer is looking for. Because ultimately, through your CV, through your job interview, you're trying to satisfy your employer. You have to keep that in mind. Employer at the first step will express what he is looking for through that particular advertisement. So if you go through that advertisement carefully, you will pick up certain terms which we call the key terms in an advertisement. They might say, we are looking for a team leader. We are looking for a person with good communication skills. We are looking for a person with proficiency in English. We are looking for a person who has good PR skills, right? So these type of key terms you have to pick up. And then we start designing our CV to cater particularly to those key terms. Now, when I say key terms, always keep in mind that these key terms might not be the first thing that you put in your CV. Like it is not the deciding factor of what goes first and what goes second, right? Now, obviously, in an advertisement for an employment, you will find that they will tell you these are the basic qualifications that we are looking for. Then you will find people who are with these particular skills are preferred. There you will find these key terms. So obviously, without doubt, your advertisement or when this advertisement tells you the things that they're looking for, your CV will cater to those particular aspects. So first you put your basic qualifications because that is the first thing that they're going to look at. Now, the other most important thing that you have to know is that any employer, when they put out an advertisement and then when they call for applications, selecting these applicants is not the only job that they have. Okay, this is one of the many things that they do. So they don't have weeks, months, years to go through your curriculum vitae. Maximum effort that an employer will put in when they select the first, let's say 20, first 10 or first 15 applicants from the CVs that they get is said to be about 15 to 20 seconds. Okay. So whatever that you put in your CV should, at the first glance, show the employer that you have those basic qualifications that they are looking for. So obviously, priority-wise, that comes first. Okay. Then your use of those key terms that they asked for will catch their eyes during those 10, 15, 20, maximum 30 to 35 seconds, or let's say 1 minute. Those key terms will catch their eyes and they will be like, okay, it's worth meeting this person. That is the impression that you need to make. because your CV itself is not going to get you the job, but it's going to get you a spot at the interview. So if you're to get that spot at the interview, you have to make them feel that you have those basic qualifications and the key qualifications or the key characteristics that they are looking for. So now with that in mind, now we know that we only have a very limited time. We know what to put. Now we come to, okay, how are we going to arrange our qualifications in the curriculum vitae? Now, some of you, I know that, and I have to say this first, this is a disclaimer, because certain people have different approaches towards CV writing. Some think that putting your picture at the top and putting a phrase describing who you are and then going accordingly is the best way, and being as creative as possible with colors, margins, and etc. is the best way to do a CV. Now, I'm not saying that it's not good, but what I'm trying to say is, as I said before, when you design your CV, it has to sort of differ from one employer to the other, and it really matters as to what your employer is looking for. Obviously, if you're a graphic designer and you're applying for a job at an advertisement firm, of course your creativity matters and you have to show it in your CV. But for example, if you're a law student applying for a research position, I doubt that that type of creativity can get you the job that you're looking for. Because if I am an employer looking for a research assistant or a researcher, I would want to know that this person can address the point, that she or he presents facts to the point. Okay, so likewise, this approach towards CV making differs from on the nature of the employment that you're applying for. However, the basic factor that no employer is going to waste 10, 15, 30 minutes to look at your CV remains a fact. There's no change to that. So what I'm trying to say with this timeline is that the other thing, that you can't have a CV that goes on to 5 to 10 pages. You might be the best student of the school. You might have gone for hundreds and thousands of competitions. You might have cupboards full of certificates. But CV is not the place where you list out all your achievements. CV is not the place where you tell them all your hobbies, all your interests. And when we say your skills, CV is not the place to say that you can swim and you can do various kinds of activities. CV is used to tell your employer that you have what they want from the person who is suitable for that particular position. So you have to be very careful about the length of your CV. Now, why we think of the length of the CV at the very beginning is because it helps you to then decide, okay, now what are the qualifications that I am going to pick and choose from the long list of qualifications that I already have. Now, at that point, you know, okay, I can't put everything in. My CV has to be to the point, but it has to address the basic qualifications, additional qualifications, and those key skills that the employer has asked for. So basically, as the next step, you're going to pick from all your qualifications, whatever that falls under those main categories. Basic qualification category, secondly, the additional qualification category, and those key skills. So once you list out those things, now you can move on to formally arrange these skills and qualifications in your CV. Now, when you arrange all this, now I told you that it can't go on to 5 to 10 pages. Now you might wonder, okay, then how long can a CV be? When you say pick and choose, if you still have 10 qualifications which fall under the key skills, now how am I going to put that? Right? So because of that, the standard practice or the accepted number of pages or the length of a CV is 1 to 2 pages. In a rare case, it can go to 3, but it's advisable that it does not go beyond 2 pages. Ideal, the perfect CV would be 1 page, but if it's difficult to put everything in 1 page, you can go to 2 pages. Not more than 2. Now, like I said, you start with the basic qualifications that they have asked for. So unless in a very, a completely different kind of like a skill-based employment, they will most probably start with educational or professional qualifications. Certain employments will focus on the professional qualification. Certain employments will focus on the educational qualification. Now, if I take an example, if a particular company is looking for a company secretary, they will focus on the professional qualification. Being an attorney at law is a professional qualification. But let's say University of Colombo is calling applications for the post of a probationary lecturer, then they will focus on your educational qualification, having the holding an LLB, right? So it differs. When you read the advertisement, you can learn this. Okay, what is the focus? Then you start with that first. Either that professional qualification or educational qualification. Now, one thing that I have seen in some of the curriculum vitae that I have gone through is that most of the times, freshers, like if this is your first ever job application, you sometimes try to put, actually we can't blame anybody, because I myself have the experience of learning at school that you had to put ordinary level examination, mathematics A or B or C, science A, B, C. So we basically copy paste our results sheet into the curriculum vitae. That's what we have been, I don't know, most of us have been taught. I hope that it's different, at least for some of you. But please don't do that. Because your certificate will speak for that. Unless that particular advertisement wants you to have, let's say it's an advertisement for the post of lecturer in international law, and let's say you have a PhD or let's say you have a distinction for international law and you have won the prize at the university for that particular subject. Of course, then you have to mention that particular thing. But what I am saying is, not the ordinary level, all the subjects. You don't have to put all subjects with all the marks or the grades that you got. Advanced level, all subjects marks, no. Your qualification now after you face the exam is that you have successfully passed the ordinary level examination. You have successfully passed the advanced level examination. But let's say you have achieved something unique, or you have, let's say you passed, you got the highest marks for a particular subject. Of course, please mention that, because that's an exceptional case, right? So highlight those aspects, but please don't copy paste your result sheet to your curriculum vitae. That's one thing to keep in mind. Now, going back to what I was saying about, okay, you first put either the professional qualification or your educational qualification, depending on what the advertisement is asking for. Remember to always put the year or basically the time in which you completed that particular qualification. For example, if you say LLB honors Colombo, and if you obtained your degree, let's say August 2015, in front of that, please say it. Now, why do we do that? Is because when you put the timeline like that, let's say you put LLB and you say this, then you put whatever the other diploma that you have obtained, and you have that date. It gives the employer an idea as to how you have improved and how fast you have obtained all your qualifications. It gives the employer a message. It helps you a lot if you have been the person that who completes everything on time. If you have completed one after the other, if you have had a very like a properly continued history of education, those things can help you. But at the same time, let's say there's a lag for some reason, you couldn't do something. Certain human resource managers and consultants, they have advised that sometimes it helps if you explain why the lag is. But in my opinion, it may not be the best. CV might not be the best place to explain all that. But it depends on the type of employment and the competition that you have, the competitive nature of that particular employment. However, having the timeline helps you most of the times. So now, even when you have that timeline, remember to always start with the most recent qualification. Don't start, when you say educational qualifications, don't start with scholarship exam, or don't start with ordinary level exam, because that's not what the employer is looking for. And also remember, if you're a graduate, your ordinary level examination doesn't matter anymore. Remember, you only have a maximum of 2 pages. So if this is my CV, I would leave out my ordinary level examination, because the moment I say advanced level examination, they know that I have already passed my ordinary level examination, unless you're like the first in the country or something like that. You should ideally leave it out. If you're a graduate, I would still say that even your advanced level examination won't matter, because the moment you're a graduate, it's the assumption that you have passed all the other steps. But if you had a really good island rank or something like that, yes, maybe. But otherwise, if it's my CV, I will not waste the space, because it won't add anything new, or it won't give me a better opportunity or a chance for this particular employment that I'm applying for. So you leave out, that is one criteria that you can use in deciding what to put and what not to put. Always think, okay, will it help if the employer knows that I have this qualification, or do my other qualifications speak for this other particular qualifications? So if you pick and choose like that, you will be able to come up with a CV that really caters to the employer's needs. And it will help you to be amongst those people who they select for the interview. Now you know what to put first, in which order, and how to exclude things that will not necessarily add value to your CV. Always remember, every word in your CV matters. Now, when I say every word in your CV matters, please make sure that your CV does not contain any spelling errors, and that the language is proper. It's always better, once you prepare a draft CV, to show it to somebody that you can rely on and get their opinion as to what they think of you when they go through the CV. Spelling errors, grammatical errors can cost you your employment. And at the same time, if your CV, let's say your name is in Roman Times New Roman 14, your school and or let's say your educational qualifications are in Arial 12. Likewise, if your CV is not properly formatted, when I say formatting, it doesn't mean all the fancy things, but it means, professional, maintaining professionalism in your CV. Everything in black, standard font size, standard font style, spacing, unique spacing, let's say entire CV is 1.5. And so things like that, let's say if you decide, okay, all my qualifications or the headings I'm going to put in bold. So every heading has to be in bold. And the institution from which I obtained my qualifications, I'm going to put in italics. So every institution has to be put in italics. Dates I'm going to put within brackets. So all the dates will go within brackets. That maintaining that uniformity, and that it shows that you're aware of the professional standards. And it gives your employer the idea that you're a person who is capable of adjusting to a professional environment, and it speaks for all your computer skills. Sorry. Now, sometimes, now when I say that, I come to the other issue where we wonder, okay, what skills am I going to put in? I have seen that sometimes we try to say Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, right? Uh, I would say unless your job advertisement or your employer has specifically asked for those as skills, I would not insert those as special skills, because it is expected at this time and age that you are well versed with Microsoft Word, Excel, and whatnot. But once again, remember, if it's a key skill in the advertisement, of course, you have to put that in. Always remember the test. Test is to look at the advertisement. Advertisement tells you what to put and what not to put. So if you actually follow the advertisement, you won't miss anything. You will know what exactly to do. And okay, now your formatting and everything is done. You know what to put first, you know what to put second, you know that you have to maintain a timeline, you put the most recent qualification first. All that is done. Now, I hope you all have heard the word resume. Now, one key difference from a simple CV and a resume is that in a resume, you mention the things that you have done. There, you are very particular about the skills or the experience that you have gained. You can, this actually helps if this is a employment, if this is an employment where they look for specific types of work experience. Let's say it's a field research officer position, and for your thesis you conducted the field research, and let's say you published it. So that might need, you know, a separate heading and a small description. But once again, remember this, generally we do this in a resume, not a general CV where you just put your qualification and the year and everything. You can pick between these two depending on the job advertisement. But I have seen instances where there's no like a clear, a strict difference between the two. But depending on, once again, the skills that they have asked for and the key qualifications that they have asked for, you can decide, okay, am I going to take an approach where I put a small description or like a point-wise explanation as to the things that I have done. For example, if you have worked for a particular NGO or a government institution where you have conducted different types of programs. So if they're looking for a project officer, they will want to know what types of projects have you managed. So even if you have been, let's say you have been a Rotaractor at the university and you have organized health camps and so many, you know, activities, projects, fundraising programs. So those types of things, if you like at least put it point form under the, let's say, heading other skills or miscellaneous or something like that, and you put all these things, but depending on, once again, the advertisement, it might give this idea to the employer that, okay, this person has the skills that we are looking for. Okay. So all this, remember, always go back to the advertisement and decide, okay, does this fall into any of the things that they have asked for? Now, once you do everything, remember that it does not run for so many pages, and show it to somebody and get their approval. Get somebody like your lecturer or your parents or a senior that you have worked for to go through it and let you know whether there are any errors and whether you have covered all the aspects that you have to cover. At this point, do any of you all have any questions? You can either directly ask or even just send it through the chat. Okay, I assume that everything is clear, or when you don't ask anything, it may also be that nothing was clear. I hope it's the former and not the latter. Okay, thank you, Darshika. All right, so those are, okay, thank you, Tujo. So basically, those are the basic tips that I think one can use when you're preparing your CV or the resume. Now, one other problem that I had when I was trying to sort of design the CV that I wanted to keep as the standard CV, why I say that, why I wanted to keep it as a standard CV is all of you can have one standard CV, but don't send it to every employment, okay, opportunity, but rather keep it and adjust it as and when you're applying for different job opportunities. But when you have one standard thing, you will know, okay, now I need to bring this skill up and put this down. It helps you a lot. Always remember that this standard CV that you're preparing has to be constantly updated. You can't have a CV that you prepared in 2012 sent to an employment that you're applying for in 2020. Your CV has to show the progression and all the recent things that you have achieved. That's why I said that timeline, indicating the time in which you finished everything is important. All right. Now, other than these, what else can you include in your curriculum vitae? Now, at this day and age, I hope that all of you have a LinkedIn account. But if you don't, I invite all of you to create your own LinkedIn account. Okay. And when you create your own LinkedIn account, because it's a professional platform, always put the link to your LinkedIn account on the top of your curriculum vitae. Okay. So basically, if I am to tell you about my curriculum vitae, at the very top of the page, it says my name, Sarani Gunatilaka. I have actually put my gay name. So my gay name, Sarani Gunatilaka. But since the name that I use is Sarani Gunatilaka, I have underlined that name. It helps the employer to call us and address us if they pick us, you know, because sometimes it's difficult for the employers when you put your name in full. Let's say somebody Arachige and something, they don't know how to address you. Even if they want to call you and ask you to come for an interview, they don't know. So the best thing is just underline the name that you commonly use, but give them the full name so that if they want to do a background search, there are certain employers who do that. They conduct a background search before they call you for an interview. So if they want to do that, give them that opportunity, put your full name, but underline the name in which you would like to be called or the name that you use in general. And then put your mobile number, your email, if you have space, your address, depending on how long your address is, and your LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn, if you put your LinkedIn in your CV, remember to have an updated LinkedIn account. Because if the employer decides to go to your LinkedIn account and check, okay, what's there, and if there's nothing, that would not do any good, but it might really cost you the job, because they will realize that, okay, this person has just created an account and just put a link for no purpose. Okay. But in the professional world, as at today, people look for resources through LinkedIn a lot. Employers approach people through LinkedIn. I have personal experience on this, so I can vouch for that. But you have to maintain a good LinkedIn account, put that link, and then your top part of the CV is completed. Then you start with either the professional qualification or the educational qualifications as per the advertisement, whatever the main qualification that they are looking for. Let's say they are looking for your professional qualification. They mainly want an attorney at law. As if you are law students, you know that you can become an attorney at law with or without an LLB, right? So they are not really worried about whether you have LLB. They are worried whether you have the professional qualification of being an attorney at law. Sorry. So because of that, you are now going to start with professional qualifications, attorney at law, the year. Let's say you have also completed CIMA. Now it's a professional qualification. Now that you started with professional qualifications, you can put that as well. Okay, so all the professional qualifications under the heading professional qualifications. Then you go on to your educational qualifications. No matter what goes first, obviously your educational qualifications will play a vital role. You put your educational qualifications. Remember, if the best qualification that you have is a PhD, don't start with LLB. You start with PhD. Then you go to your master's if you have a master's. Then you go to a postgraduate. Then you go to your degree certificate. If you have a diploma. Likewise, always give priority to the most recent and the best qualification that you have, because you're trying to get the attention of your employer. So the moment he reads it, if he sees two best things, he'll be like, even without going through the rest, okay, ask this person to come. That is what you want to get done. Once you do that, next step is in the at the interview. So till that point, you have to try with each word you use in your CV to somehow impress the employer and make sure that he calls you for the interview. If you get that done, you have got half the job done. All right, so we do educational qualifications, then you go on to your work experience. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, generally when we prepared CVs, we used to say single, marital status, my school, all the schools that you have been to. Do I have to say all that? You must be thinking. In my opinion, and I would say in all professional standards, really doesn't matter. But if the particular employment says you have to be single, then of course it's a vital thing to include in your CV. But if it doesn't, if that particular post doesn't really require you to be married or to be single, then it doesn't matter, right? But if it does, if it says all applicants should be married, of course you have to put that in, because it's a basic, it's not a basic, it's a compulsory qualification, right? So depending on what it asks, you have to insert it. But if it doesn't, I would say it's irrelevant. Don't waste your space. School, not really necessary. But let's say if you say advanced level examination, best results in the science stream of Veyangoda Central College, yes, then yes. But otherwise, not really. But if you think your school really matters in this employment, maybe yes. But I hope that you have, and I really hope that all of you have qualifications that can put you to that employment rather than the particular school that you went to. But once again, I won't tell you, okay, don't put it at all. But if you think that is something that can get you the job, yes. But I hope you would. Okay, so those are, I am just thinking, since you're not asking the particular questions, I'm assuming the type of issues that you might be having, and I'm preempting those questions. So school, marital status, those things they don't really matter. But of course, when you say LLB honors, please say from which university. Let's say diploma, please say from which institute. Those things matter, because that is a particular institution from which you obtain a particular qualification. Because remember, certain employment advertisements will tell you that you have to have a degree as a basic qualification from a university recognized by the University Grants Commission, right? So if it says so, you definitely have to mention the university. Even otherwise, you have to, because you can't have a LLB from nowhere. Okay? But advanced level examination is a government examination, and the government vouchers for it. You can't take it from the school, doesn't matter. Okay, I hope you understand the rationale on which we decide whether to put the institution or not. Always think of the logic and follow the logic. Then you don't need anybody to really tell you what to put and what not to put. Okay? So once you cover all that, so now we have professional, educational qualifications, then we go on to work experience. Now I have seen a lot of memes on Facebook saying that when you apply for a interview, they say 30 years of experience and you're just out of the university, you don't have any experience. Okay, what am I going to do now? I understand that. But think of all the, when you say work experience, don't really think that you have to have been engaged in a particular employment per se. You might have had, you might have completed internships, right? Include that. And if you think what the projects that you handled or the projects that you were involved in uh, will show the employer that you have certain types of skills that he's looking for, please do mention that. That will help you. So, so you have to always, I'm seeing the messages, I will quickly address those. So you have to always be mindful of the fact that don't go negative. Okay, when you see certain qualifications that they have asked for, think deeply and try to say, okay, what are they trying to ascertain? What are the skills that they're trying to see whether we have? Okay, so if you have, let's say, when you say work experience, you might have been self-employed. Let's say you're applying for a lecturer position, and after doing your advanced level, you have conducted several classes for A-level students. So that is teaching experience, right? So take the risk and insert it. But one thing, be truthful. Remember, if you lie in your CV, you're going to get caught at the interview. CV is only a stepping stone to the interview. So your CV has to always be truthful. So if you're telling the truth, even that type of personal experience, personal work experience amounts to work experience. So insert those things and point wise explain a little bit what you have done. Conducted classes for advanced level students 2020 or 2019. Okay, and this is on mathematics, something like that. You can just insert that. Okay, then you have work experience, then your other qualifications. Now in my CV, my resume, I say miscellaneous, and I have put whatever the other special achievements that you have obtained. Or actually in my CV prior to that, if you have publications. Now this matters a lot. If you are trying to apply for a research position, or if you're applying for the position of a lecturer, it matters a lot. So if you have publications, please put those publications as well. Now, once again, remember, this is strictly considering that it is asked for in your in the job advertisement. If they don't put everything that you have published. But certain things you have to assume. Now, when they call for applications for the post of a lecturer, they might not say list out all your publications. But you know that if you're a lecturer, your academic research is going to matter, right? So those are the skills that they would like to see. So then insert those skills. Okay, I have a question. Tujo, it's yesterday I got this CV from a website. Okay, I think I can answer Tujo's question later. Am I right? And I'll move to Nifla's question. If we are currently following a degree Are we supposed to include that too in the CV? Of course you can. You can say reading for that particular degree or a candidate. If you're, that will help because it shows that you're currently doing your studies. But you might have to say, if you're applying for a full-time job, you might have to say that your education, you're doing it part-time, because if not, they might wonder, okay, how are you going to manage a full-time job and full-time education, right? So without confusing them, always make sure that within brackets you say part-time or weekend classes or something like that. Does that answer your question, Nifla? Akash. Okay, how important is the referees part? Of course, it's very, very important. Now, almost all advertisements will want you to cite one or two referees. Remember, when you put the referee, just for the sake of it, don't put the name of the dean of the faculty if the dean doesn't really know you. It might be better to insert your lecturer as your referee than inserting your dean, because the lecturer will be able to give tangible feedback or tangible comments on your work to the employer rather than somebody who really doesn't know you. So when you pick the referee, be very, very careful about that. I have experienced so many cases where their CVs look so good, and the moment we try to contact the referee and ask them, do you know this person? And when we say the name, they take 2-3 minutes, or sometimes they say, sorry, I don't know him or her. That can really cost you the job. So first step, when you decide on the referee, pick people who really know you. Pick people with whom you have positive work experience. Pick people whom you know that will help you get this job. This criteria is really, really important. Okay, and pick people who can communicate well. Okay, and pick people who answers their phones or emails. Okay, once you make a list of such people, first speak to those people. Okay, you first make a list of possible referees, then you can maybe arrange that those names in the order of, let's say, experience or reputation. Once you arrange their names in an order of priority, call them or email them. Actually, calling them is better. At the same time, email them and ask them, sir, ma'am, I am applying for this kind of a job. Would it be okay if I insert your name as a referee? If they give you the confirmation, or if they say, yes, of course, please go ahead, then insert their names. Do not insert names of people as referees without talking to them. And once you insert their name, specifically tell them, once again call them, email them, tell them, ma'am, sir, I have inserted your name as a referee. This is the name of the company. They might call you or email you. For the ease of your reference, I will send you my CV. So whatever the CV that you send to the employer, please send the same to the referee as well. So that by the time they get the call, they are also updated as to what you have told the employer. So if the employer questions the referee about you, referee will know what to say. Don't let them be in the dark. Okay, so the referee part is very, very important. But keep in mind, you can't have the same referees for every employment. Okay, your referees most probably will have to change depending on the type of the job that you're applying for. But this depends on the, the available, it depends. Now, if you're a person who is who just left law school, obviously you won't have as many people to put as referees, but your lecturers. So in such a situation, that's okay. But if you, let's say you left law school, but you have also interned with an attorney at law, I would say it's best to put your senior and a lecturer as referees, because that will vouch for your education and your work experience. So always when you pick the referees, try to give that mix, because they can speak for the authenticity and the truthfulness of your CV and you. So it's very important. Any other questions? Does that answer your question, Akash? If that's the case, I think now, if it is not mentioned in the advertisement, does adding referees available upon request look bad on the CV? It won't look bad, actually. I don't think it'll look bad. If they have not asked for, you can say that. But certain instances, I would say sometimes it might be advisable if you can, from your general understanding, insert one person as a referee. But otherwise, I wouldn't say that it would look bad if you say referee will be, the contacts will be made available upon request. That won't be a problem if they have not asked for it. Okay, thank you. Now with that, I think if you all are satisfied and if you all have no further questions on the CV writing part, maybe we can go on and discuss about how to face an interview. Now, just to finish this part, I also want to say, don't always put a picture of yourself in your CV. Some employers don't take it as a positive aspect in a CV, because a CV should not really depend on your looks. Okay, but if you're applying for the post of, if you're applying to become a TV host, please do. If not, I would say don't. Okay, because CV is not the method to show your appearance and win the job through your appearance. Okay. All right. So now moving on to the part on how to face an interview. Now, once you send your CV, okay, sorry, let me go back to that final point. I have seen some people, most of the times nowadays, we send our CVs through emails, right? We just email our CV. I have seen some applicants just attach the CV without anything in the body and just sending it. Please don't do that. You have to put a subject, address whoever the person who has published the advertisement, address the email to that person, say who you are, say that you're applying for this particular post as per the advertisement that you saw somewhere, and ask them to please accept the same and then send it. This is very, very important. Don't just attach CVs and send blank emails. Okay. All right. Minoli has a question. How about inserting LinkedIn URL? Yes, of course, Minoli. I mentioned that earlier also. If you don't have a LinkedIn, please create an account, maintain an updated LinkedIn account. Please insert it in your CV, because then they will be able to click on that and see who you are and the recommendations that other people have given you. So your referee issue can get half solved through that, because in your LinkedIn you have people who have recommended your services, right? Or given you recommendations. So that can help you to a certain extent. Okay. Any other questions on CVs? CV writing? Okay, looks like that's it. Since we don't have much time now, I'll move on to the interview part. Now, once you send the CV, if you get a call or if you get an email saying, congratulations, we have selected you for the first phase of the interview or the first round of interviews, and please come on this date at this time. So you have won half the battle. Now it's about preparing for your interview. So when you prepare for your interview, first thing, when you get that email or that call, please go and put that on a calendar that you can see every day. Basically, a calendar that you always see in your house. Put it in red, circle it, say that you have an interview so that you will not forget the date. Put a reminder on your phone. These things are really important because sometimes you might miss the date, you might forget the date, or you might think it's okay. If it's the 10th, you might think it's on the 11th. Okay, and the time. Because if you're not able to be there for the interview on the correct date at the correct time, you won't get the job. It's as simple as that. You will lose it. So, important thing, properly make note of the date, time, and make sure that you arrange all necessary things to be there on time. When I say on time, if you're the applicant, make sure you're there 15 minutes before. Okay? You might want to go to the washroom. You might want to just sit there and adjust to the environment, see how other people are, what is the type of the company. To do all that, you will need that 15 minutes and it will help you. So go there early, 15 minutes before the time. Now, when you get that call, the next thing that you have to do is, now you have to do some further research. What is the working culture of this particular company or the firm or this particular senior with whom you have applied to work now in future. Okay, so speak to people that you know, ask them, okay, for any tips that they can give you when facing the interview. Most of the times, this type of calls help because they will tell you, oh, my senior really doesn't like it when you, let's say, when you wear, when you come late. My senior doesn't like it when you don't bring a file with you. When my senior doesn't like it when you don't sit properly. Okay, they can give you tips that of certain things that you might really not think of. Okay, and sometimes some of those tips might be helpful for you to decide, okay, what am I going to wear? How am I going to sit? How am I going to talk? What is the, so what's the culture there? Is it a more bureaucratic culture or is it a friendly environment? Okay, you will be able to get that idea if you try to do a bit of research. Read about that company or firm. Read about their history. Now, if you're applying for a researcher position or let's say a lecturer or a junior counsel, an associate at a firm, so it always helps you if you understand the nature of work that they're doing. Okay, let's say it's a research institute. If you know the type of research that they have been doing all this time, it will help you answer most of the questions that they might come up with. So likewise, do a little bit of background research before you go for an interview. So now you know what to wear. Now when I say you know what to wear, you know the type of attire, whether it's fully formal or otherwise. Now, I assume that we don't have like software engineers here. If we do, other than for them, I suggest that for every other interview, you wear formal. Okay, because I know some of the software companies, they will tell you to come in casual. Unless you are specifically asked to come in casual, please wear formal. That's the safer option. If you don't know what to wear, formal is always safe. Sorry. So at that point, we have to play safe. So you wear that. And remember, before you go for the interview, try to think of possible questions that they can ask. What I generally do is, I try to think like the employer. I try. So you also can try. Now you have read the advertisement. You have really thought about the particular qualifications that they are looking for, particular skills that they are looking for. So now you have some idea about this position and what the employer is expecting. Sorry. So with that understanding, sorry, try to think like the employer. If I am the employer, what will I ask from this person? And make a list of similar questions. And also remember, there are certain standard questions that they ask sometimes. For example, most of the interviews will start where they, with the questions, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself? A standard question. So for standard questions, you can have, prepared answers. When I say prepared, I'm not asking you to write it down and, memorize it and then just to repeat it. No, but you will know what to say so that you won't miss points. Now, you might think, okay, how am I going to answer a question like that? When they say, tell me about yourself, when we were kids, we used to say, my name is this, my school is this, right? I have 2 siblings, my mother is this one, my father is this one. No, so that's not going to help you at an interview. When they ask you a standard question like, tell me a little bit about yourself, we should be able to formulate an answer. Once again, showcasing and, reiterating those skills that they are looking for, right? What type of a person am I? Now, when we formulate an answer for this, there are 2 schools of thought. Some say that it's always good to use, strong terms like I'm a hardworking person. I work under stress. So some say that it's good to use terms like hardworking, motivated, terms like that. Some say that it's good to show that you are more, you work towards achieving goals. That things like I always enjoy working with teams, right? So things like that, you don't term certain things that you like with strong terms, but rather you direct or you explain yourself with more with goals. What are the type of things that you like to do? You put it in a very, not to describe yourself as a person who always fight battles, but rather a person who is more positive and, find solution type of a person. In my opinion, I also prefer the latter, where I would say I enjoy teamwork. Likewise. But there is no hard and fast rule on this. It's about you, right? So some people really don't, some people want, actually some of us enjoy working according to a schedule. We love to be organized, okay? And some don't. Some really, some people can only work under stress, right? So people are different. That's okay. That diversity is acceptable. But be true to yourself and present yourself in a manner that they are able to see that ideal candidate that they have in mind. If it's a project officer is supposed to handle so many things at once. That person has to be a team player. That person has to have good communication skills. That person should enjoy working with people. So try to think of those aspects and try to put that into that 1, 2 or 3 minutes where you explain yourself. Okay, I can't give you a standard answer, but you have to think, okay, how will I explain myself? Particularly in this, what will I be in this employment? Okay. Let them see that ideal candidate in you. Don't force it, but just let them see it. You have to be tactical about it. Sometimes the employers don't like it when you overstate yourself. So make sure that you don't do that. And also when they ask you questions, um, it is it's widely accepted or widely recommended that you use the STAR method when you answer questions. STAR, STAR. STAR method is where you give answers referring to particular situations. Okay. Now, if they say, can you work under pressure? There are two types of answers that you can give. You can say, yes, I can. Okay. Or you can say, yes, I have had such situations and I have been able to manage such situations well. If I may be permitted to give you such an example, and you can give them an example where you give a situation, you explain them the situation, and then you explain them the task that you had to do, your action, what is the particular action that you took, and then what the result was. We call it the STAR method. If you follow that method, make sure that you don't annoy the interview panel, because some interview panels really don't enjoy candidates talking nonstop. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. Always make sure you get their permission to present them this situation. And sometimes they do ask for such examples. Can you explain us a situation where you worked under pressure and how did you handle that situation? So if you're prepared to give a STAR type of answer, then you can become a star. Okay. So always try to have few situation analysis like that to fit into those particular skills that the employer had asked for. So if those are the key things that they look for, you know that you have case studies for each of those skills. Even though they might not ask you for case studies on each of those skills, you will have at least one, and that will help you. Being prepared before the interview will boost your self-confidence. Okay, and it will help you to face the interview with confidence. Now that is about being prepared prior to the interview. Now on the day of the interview, I am reiterating, be punctual, dress well, make sure if they have asked for all your certificates, printed, photocopies, all that is properly put in files, pinned, numbered, arranged, all that. Make sure that you take all of them with you to the particular place that they have asked you to come. Okay, go early, feel comfortable, observe other people, and from the moment you enter that particular building, remember your interview has started. From the point you enter the building, your interview starts. Once you entered, your interview has started. So you have to behave as if you are now already in the interview. Okay. So the way in which you speak to people, respect people. Now this is not acting. I hope all of you understand the value of being nice, respecting people, all that. So basically follow those same guidelines and principles, and act as if you are already facing the interview, right? Now, when your name is called, go inside, basic manners. If they ask you to take a seat, thank them, take the seat, answer their questions. Don't try to be overly friendly because you have applied for a job, okay? But don't be too, scared and frightened. Not that too. Try to be professional and give, specific answers. When they ask for something, when they ask you about your leadership qualities, don't tell them about something else. Okay? And once you give your answers, there are two tricky questions that they might ask. One thing, what is your salary expectation? Now, if this is your first job, but still, let's say you need cash, right? That's why you applied for a job. You need cash, but for what purpose, right? And if your decision on selecting this particular job is fully dependent on the salary that they are going to pay. Remember those conditions. If your decision to select this job is fully dependent on the salary, and if you have a salary in mind, present it, because if that's the only thing that you're looking for from that employment. But I suppose that as a fresh graduate, that should not be your only concern or main concern. But of course, it should be a concern. Okay? So one way that you can phrase it is that I graduated this year. Okay? So I am mainly looking forward to learn and gain more experience. And I hope this company is the best place for me to do that. Right? However, at the same time, all throughout, my parents have been helping me to finish my studies. However, I can no longer burden them. Therefore, so long as my primary needs are satisfied, I would be happy to go ahead with that. And I hope that the proposition on the salary range that you have will accommodate such financial needs that I have. Something like that, to make them feel that they can't pay you, they can't give you something from which you can't even afford your bus fare. Right? So you have to give them the idea that you're looking for a salary with which you can maintain yourself. And at the same time, job is not only about your salary, but you want to learn more. Right? So it gives them an idea. It conveys the message, if that is the message that you want to convey. But at the same time, sorry, if you have, let's say you have several friends who are working there already, and you have a basic idea about the range. Okay, so maybe you can give them a range, suggest a range between this and this, a range. So it helps them to understand where you stand. Now, this again depends on the nature of the company that you are applying for and the knowledge that you have regarding what they are paying to other people. These are certain factors that you have to consider. Next thing is, they will ask you whether you have any questions for them. At the end, they will be like, okay, do you have any questions? Don't ever say no. Okay, Technically, you should at least have one question. You're going to start a job at a place where you really don't know what's happening, right? So be ready with at least one standard question. Something, very basic would be, what are the available opportunities for me to, uh, uh, take myself up in this company. Okay. So, progression wise, or how will I be assessed? Or maybe you can ask, who will be the best, what would you think the best person to handle this job would be like? So there are certain standard questions that you can come up with, like several things. If you try to think about it, at least one, like not a lot, obviously. Like if they give you the opportunity, maybe one, just to show that you have really thought about it. Okay, so those are, I in my view, those are the two tricky things that they can ask you. Maybe one more, the famous question, where do you see yourself in another 5 years, 10 years? Like that, they can ask you. The diplomatic answer, if you want the job, is to say that you will stay in that particular company or that particular firm, and you would try to get promoted or get progressed to the next senior position, or something like that, but in the same company or the same firm. Because remember, whatever the field is, every company, every firm consider uh, a new recruit to be an investment, because they are going to train you. The seniors are going to be mentors. So y'all are, not just y'all, every new candidate is an investment. They don't want to lose that. So they will only be happy if they get to know that you have future plans with them. So basically, that will be the diplomatic answer to give. But at the same time, if you think about it, it's not unfair on their end as well. Okay. Any other specific questions that you have? Soumya has asked for a sample CV. Yes, Soumya, I'll discuss with the organizers and make sure that I send one out. Any questions on interviews and nothing? I think we have like 10 minutes. So if you all have any questions, I can take them now. Thank you, Darshika. Any area that's not clear, you can ask me. We have time, or if there's anything that I have left out, unintentionally, of course, I tried my best. Okay, thank you, Chamodi. Okay, maybe one last thing. Remember that interviews nowadays are somewhat different to interviews that some of us used to have those days, where it was a very formal question answer session. Nowadays, employers tend to have friendly discussions to ascertain your communication skills and how well you can articulate yourself. So I invite all of you to invest more time on developing your communication skills, because sometimes that only can get you the job. Sometimes all your professional qualifications, educational qualifications might not be enough and might not do the job. Okay, strengths and weaknesses. Yes. Yeah, that's another thing that in formal interviews, they can ask you, okay, can you tell us your strengths and weaknesses? Obviously, I know all of you will be very straightforward in presenting your strengths, but you might be scared of, okay, what am I going to present as one of my weaknesses in this particular interview? So I invite you, okay, I will come to Durshani's question after this. So when you decide on your weakness, now obviously in an when we go for an interview, we have to be tactful, right? So make sure that all your strengths relate to the skills that they have specifically asked for. Okay, whatever the weakness that you decide to state, make sure that it is not one of the key skills that they have set out. You can pick on any weakness that you have, but please make sure it is not one of those key skills. Okay, but the moment you present to them one of your weaknesses, tell them that I have identified this as one of my weaknesses. However, I am endeavoring to overcome that weakness by doing these things. Don't go on and give them 100, like a list of 100 things, but give them the idea that you're working on it. Okay, don't just say that this is my weakness, full stop, but tell them I have identified that this is one of my weaknesses, or this is a weakness, but I am working on it. Give them that idea. Okay, I don't see the name, but would that answer your question on strengths and weaknesses? I don't know who sent it. Okay. Durkashini, what is the best way to answer the question, why are you leaving your present employer? Okay, if you already have an employer and you're leaving the employer, you will have a real reason for it, right? Most of the times, these reasons vary from payment, work culture, different things. But the tip is, don't badmouth about your previous employer to your current employer. Okay, that would not look good. But if you're making that decision because of certain other problems that you have that you think will be addressed through this employment, like for example, let's say you okay, let's say you have now come to this employer because they didn't really pay you and you couldn't get any promotions. You were in that company for 10 years, but it's the same position. Now you really want to leave. So to this employer, you will say that I really liked the progression culture in this company, right? And I have this much of experience. So I wanted myself to learn more and progress, have career progression. That is why I came to this company. Always don't badmouth the previous employer, but try to attach your reason to a good quality here. So basically, you have to tactically give an answer that will make this employer feel good, but at the same time, you won't make them feel like you are bad mouthing your previous employer. But there's no standard answer as such. Depending on that particular employer and what you didn't have there and what you have here, in a very objective manner, you have to justify it. Durkashini, would that answer your question? Okay, thank you. I don't know. Okay, we have another question from Manisha. Okay, Manisha joined a little late due to a connection problem. And her question is, if we are going for an interview in the area of law, and if we have qualifications like sports, do we need to add them to CV? Manisha, actually, we discussed it. Depends on what type of sports achievements you have. That can actually go under the topic of miscellaneous, if at all. Let's say if you captained the volleyball team of your school, that might show that you're a good leader. You have leadership qualities. So that sense, that will be helpful. Let's say, or as a team member, you have won the national championship, right? Still, it will show that you're a team player. Likewise, but depends on the nature of the qualification that you have. If you were just part of the team, I'm not saying that it doesn't mean that you don't have those skills, but it depends on the other qualifications that you already have. It's a matter of picking the best from the list of things that you have. So when you put everything down, if you think that this is the best thing, this is the best I have when proving my leadership and leadership qualities, please do go ahead and insert it. But let's say if you have 100 things and you have better things, so give priority. It's a matter of arranging it and giving each qualification marks by yourself. You have to decide the best. to address each of the skills that they are looking for. Now, even if it's a firm, they would like to have a good team player. Okay, any company, sports especially, companies do like people who play sports, right? But that can't be one of the main things that can show your skills. Once again, let me be clear, all of this depends on the nature of your job application. Now, sometimes we also have, you're also a legal officer, but you're going to a company which is dedicated in promoting sports activities. So if that's the case, it's better you put this. It's actually a case by, I mean, it's specific to each case. Does that answer your question, Manisha? Any further questions? Manisha, can I further clarify it to you, or would that answer your question? Okay, thank you, Manisha. Any other questions? All right, if we don't have any further questions, I think we can end the session. But if you have any further questions, I will take them. Thank you, Malsha. Okay, it looks like no further questions. Thank you, everyone. I hope I did some justice to the session and that I was able to share with you some helpful advice. And I wish you all the very best in all your future endeavors, and hope that all of you will get all the success in future. Good luck, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Sarini Gunadata. It was a very great, it was a great pleasure having you today with us with this whole session, because I'm sure every one of us here today must have learned something that's useful, not just to carry it off in CVs, but definitely in professional and personal life as well. Thank you very much, despite your busy schedule, having us here today for this very insightful session, because I think because I was also listening to the session and where, the short techniques and tricks that we could use when we actually get into sessions. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our president of the Law Student Association of Sri Lanka 2020, Miss Sajni Wickramasinghe as well. because without her dedication and immense support, this webinar series would not have been possible. And of course, the American Corner for giving us the Zoom facility and joining us here with us today. And most importantly, the Career Development Committee members for participating and helping us throughout. And most importantly, the participants for joining us today with the webinar series. So we hopefully plan on having all the participants joining in for our next webinar series as well, which will immensely benefit everyone out there. So please stay tuned, and thank you so much for being with us here today. Thank you, Mrs. Sarani Gunathaskar, for having us here today. So we shall wrap this off with a thank you, and please do stay safe. Thank you.